All right, so I'm going to teach you, and we're going to talk about some composition tips and tricks. So not even doing anything with your camera per se, it's just how you compose the picture. It's going to improve your photos right away. It's going to make them better and stronger, and it's a lot of the things we just talked about that you guys recognized, and we're going to see those now. So, oh, I know what I was going to say. This PowerPoint is in Learning Plan 1, so if you need any of these slides for reference later, they're all there. If you want to take notes extra, you certainly can, however you want to do that, but the PowerPoint does have everything in it. So the first thing that you can do to instantly improve your photos is this idea of this rule of thirds. And the idea behind that is you do basically a tic-tac-toe grid, and then the important part is not the upper third, the lower third, this box, that box. That has nothing to do with it. The key point is these intersection points where the lines meet. And you should put your subject matter in one of those intersections, or the main part of your subject matter. So the one on the left, you see we have the woman slightly offset. You can see a little bit more of the table. And then in this one, the man's eye is in this upper right intersection point. Because of that, we also have kind of some room for perceived movement or motion, and we can kind of feel like, he's looking this way, right? So that makes sense. What if the person had composed this like this? Here's your shot, and here's the grid. So it's this version of the photo. His eye would still be in this intersection point, but you would have more of the image over here. Would that be as pleasing to you, do you think? Why not do you think it wouldn't quite feel good?
Less of his line of sight is in the image?
Pardon?
Like less of his line of sight is in the image?
Yeah, like this is the end of the photo right here. So it sounds like he's looking off the photo kind of awkwardly, right? That would be a little bit uncomfortable. So it's usually a good idea to keep that extra space in your photo where like the line of sight is, or she's looking right at us. It's not a line of sight, but maybe in theory the fact that she's next to this fancy setup table is important, something like that. So two kind of examples of that. Here's some more. Again, the bird is not dead center in the image like it is a lot of times with just snapshotists, people that are just, I take my camera, I go out and I shoot. So the bird is in the upper right corner. If it's not perfect in camera, when you go to crop, you can always do this again. And in Photoshop, when we hit the crop tool, this overlay is probably the one that pops up. It's one of many that you can use, and that's why. So as you're pulling down your crop marks, you see this grid of threes, and you can keep that intersection point in one of your, where your subject matter is the strongest. Another thing of note is that a lot of us have the ability, and we're going to look at our own cameras at the end or at a certain point, so don't start looking at all this right now. But a lot of us have the ability to turn that on as a display right on your camera LCD screen, so that grid would actually show up while you're taking it, and you can compose it using that as well. Okay, the bottom two photos both use the rule of the grid of threes, and she's in an intersection point in both of them. Just from personal preference, no right or wrong, but you have to vote for one. Who likes the photo on the left the best? Who likes the photo on the right the best? In the back row, nobody voted. Who likes the one over here? Who likes this one better? Okay. Whoever liked this one, tell me why you prefer this photo. This one has the waves coming in. Okay. Anything else?
You can see where she's going to be going.
Okay, so you can kind of see where her movement is going. Okay. Those of you that like the one on the right, why did you like that?
Because the focus is always actually on the runner and not the water.
The water, the waves haven't come in, so that's not as much of the focus of the picture. Yep. What other reasons do you maybe like this one? It's personal preference. I've had people say that they like to see her whole shadow, like that they appreciate it over in this one where it's cut off. And I've also had people say they like the story that's told here of where she's been. how much ground she's covered. So either way, you have to tell your story. The thing that you wouldn't want to do though is get the edge of your picture so close that it looks like she's ready to fall off. Okay, you got to have some amount of room left in your photo to tell the story. All right. Another overlay that you can use on your camera or on Photoshop when you're actually doing cropping is this one, the golden mean, golden rectangle. Do you guys do this in Design Fundamentals? Talk about this a little bit? Okay, so this is a mathematical principle that's been around for a really long time, 400 BC, and it's actually found in nature, and I'll show you a picture in just a second to make that sense, to make that make sense. The thing is that it's a matter of proportion. So things naturally look good, they look balanced when they're in proportion. And if you start with this original square rectangle, if you cut off a perfect square, the piece that you have left over, the idea is then you cut off a perfect square of that. And then this piece that you have left over, you tip it and you cut off a square. And you keep doing that, and then you connect all the points together. And this is a pattern, like I said, that's found in nature. Whirlpools, horns, snail shells, whatever. But it's very similar to the grid of threes or the rule of thirds, where this is about the same point as that upper left intersection point, right? If we were to put the tic-tac-toe grid on here. But it draws the eye in. So here's some other examples of it overlaid on a photo. It's a little bit lower than maybe where the tic-tac-toe thing would be, but it's a very strong composition option. All right, the next tip that I can give you is keep your photos simple and uncluttered to the point where people know what your photo is about. You guys ever, back when people used film photography and they went on vacation, about a week after they got home and they got their pictures back, you could plan on sitting with them while they went through every shot and told you, oh, this is when, blah, 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 and this is where. And if they have to tell you everything about the photo to explain it, it's probably not a strong photo. Maybe where it is and what it is they want to elaborate on. But in this one, why did this person get out of their car and take this picture? What's the point? Was it because there was a telephone booth? Was it the cactus? Whatever your subject matter is, make it simple, make it clean. Don't clutter it up. Like I said, if you have a picture of some people outside and just then a golf cart comes flying along and just the front of the golf cart is in your photo, let's say it's parked there and you could have moved 2 feet and gotten it out, do that. Don't say, I'll fix it later in Photoshop. You know why? Sometimes it's not fixable, for sure. But what if it's just, you know, you got a picture of your best friends out there, they look great, they're all dressed up, but there's 3 cigarette butts or a Coke can laying in the way, and you go, you can clone it out later in Photoshop. And you take 700 photos that day. A lot of time wasted. If you can clean up the issue, I'm not saying cigarette butts were probably a bad example because I'm not sure I want to go clean all that up, but if it's something like just a Coke can that's there, pick it up and put it in the trash and get it out of your picture. If it's the front end of that golf cart out here, walk 2 feet, reposition your people so that they're not in a problem. Also, don't have stuff coming out of their head, like the signs out here for the fact that we're on White Pine Walkway. You don't want that coming out of their head, so think about that. Another really simple tip is framing your view. So including arches, doorways, windows, or in nature, just having some tree boughs hang over can really make the picture much, much, much stronger. Okay? Skip that one. Okay, get up close, fill your frame. We're going to talk about optical zoom and digital zoom. Optical zoom is the power of the glass in your lens. So if any of you have your point and shoots here today, take them out, put them in your hand, and get ready to look at them. Those of you that have this SLR, get ready to look at that. How we know what our camera is capable of doing as far as a zoom is, on a point and shoot, actually Rob, you want to come up and grab this camera and then you'll have something to look at while we're going through all this You want this wrap? All right, so if you have a point and shoot camera, I want you to look at the front of it. And typically somewhere on the front, right around your lens, you're gonna have some information and numbers. So this one says Canon zoom lens 4XIS. That means that the optical capabilities of this camera can zoom in 4 times. Who can tell me what their point and shoot say? What do you guys have? 3 times? 30. Okay. 40. So it says 40x
Yeah.
on the front of these. Okay, those of you that have SLRs, the amount of zoom you have is dependent on the lens that you have on it. And you can buy different lenses. So, for example, this lens, if you look at the top where all the numbers are, is an 18 by 135. So at 18 millimeters, if I look through it, I've got a really wide view. And as I keep zooming, I get down to or up to the 135 zone. So if I want more zoom, I have to buy a different lens. If I want wider angle, I have to buy a different lens. So what do you have for yours?
The original one is 18 to 55, but then I also have a 75 to 300.
So the 18 to 55 is a real typical kit lens that comes with your camera, and then quite often if you get 2 lenses, you get the next step up, like a 70 to something. Who else has an SLR lens that's maybe different from what we're talking about, or can you find it? So what do you have? What prime? What, 50? No, that's bigger. 90? Okay, so that's an interesting topic. The lens she has right now is called a prime lens. The reason is it's one fixed length, 90 millimeters. So when she looks through it, there is no zoom in, zoom out. And if you've ever worked with a camera like that, after you're used to having zoom, it's weird because you want to zoom in a little. Guess what she has to do? Walk. God forbid she has to move around to get closer or further away. Those fixed lenses can be really crisp and really awesome too. There's a really good reasoning for them. Who else has something different? What do you have, Zach? Yours is
I have
18 to 55? Okay. All right. So how you change the optical capabilities of your SLR is buying different lenses. Now, these cameras, these point and shoots, can go beyond the 4X or whatever they advertise. That's the optical quality. That means that the glass built into here can do whatever is advertised on the front of it. Beyond that, you go into digital zoom. So every time that you zoom in further and take more of a picture, I think you do the one that's charged. Every time you do that, as you pull on the little zoom thing, a little line bar is gonna show up on the back on your LCD screen. And as you're zooming from where you are to your maximum optical point, it's gonna fill in that bar up to a halfway point, and you're gonna see a line right there. After you pass that, you're in optical zoom mode. And what happens then is that your camera is guessing and interpolating and faking it. So, have any of you with the point and shoots ever taken a picture of maybe a bird up there and you zoomed and zoomed and zoomed, and then when you get it back, it's just a horrible, pixelated, icky, yucky picture? That's because you went beyond what the camera could do optically and it went into fake it mode and digital mode. So, my tip is, if you're buying a camera, a point and shoot, and getting close to the action is important to you, spend your money on a camera that has the higher optical zoom. So I had a friend that said, oh, I just got this camera. It's 7-time optical, but 250-time digital. Like, ugh. That's going to be gross once you go over 7-time optical. It's going to start getting ugly. So spend your money on the best optical zoom on a point and shoot. Okay? So optical zoom is important. That can get you closer. Point number 2, use your legs. Walk closer. You guys are really going to find that it's sometimes awkward, I think, to get closer to people. And we'll talk about that in portrait photography. If I wanted to take your picture and this is where I wanted to be, would that bother you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I were 10 feet back, would it be a little bit better? Yeah. So we'll talk about that too and using the proper lens for that. And then cropping your shot is another option that you can do. So the shot of the lower right, if you wanted to get closer to the subject, you could go in Photoshop and crop down to this point, but the thing that you have to remember is the quality that your camera can record, however many megapixels. Say it's, I don't know, 13 megapixels. That's what's in all of this. So, or let's just say 12 megapixels, and then I can do a little bit better math. This is about 1/3 of that, so this would maybe be 4 megapixels worth of data, right? You can blow that up to a certain size and it's going to look good. You can't crop all the way down to just this little portion and then blow it up to a 8.5 by 11 and expect it to look good, or a 2 foot by 3 foot and expect it to look good. There's a limitation because you're not using all 13 or 12 megapixels that your camera recorded. So you got to be careful with that too. All right, some other composition tips that can help you change the look and feel of your photos instantly are showing perspective. So getting up really high on a shot, looking down on things, looking up on things, flowers. Anytime you can get super low to the ground. Whoever's your picture that didn't load, you said was low to the ground.
Yeah, it was like down on the road.
Yeah.
And there was like trees in the background and stuff.
So you're like literally on, the camera's on the road. That's a pretty cool feeling. Like it takes you right there versus the person standing up at this height and taking the shot. So perspective is something that's really powerful. Looking your subject in the eye. So when you're taking people shots, the eyes have it. You need to look your subject in the eye. Does anybody recognize this photo? Or know where it's from? Yep, it was a cover back in the day. And they found her and went back and took that same picture. Yeah.
It looks like proto package.
Another tip is whenever possible, especially with people obviously, is to use a plain background. So if I challenged you, I said, you have to take a headshot of me in this classroom. Where are you going to put me in this room?
Whiteboard.
On the wall, it's a little softer. It's not glossy.
That back wall that's white. Yeah, because this one is shiny, that's true. But there's so much going on in here, right? Here's the other thing. If I were to say, you two are going to take a headshot of each other up here, the whiteboard's good. I bet you $50 you go like this. You get really close to the wall, right? Or maybe not up against it, but it's going to be a mugshot the closer you get to the wall. We don't want that. So if we had to take a picture in here, somewhere in here we could maybe find an option. Or what if you had your subject standing right dead center there, and you had a lens and the aperture capability, which we'll talk about, that allowed you to blur out almost everything but them. So then all of this stuff would just be pretty bubbles of color, not necessarily crystal clear. That's a thought too. But if I said, take a picture, I need a headshot of the person that sits next to you, and I want it done in 3 minutes, what else could you do? Leave this room. Yeah, that's an idea. Go to my hair pocket, lay down on the floor. That would be weird, but you could try it. You don't have to walk around. There's got to be a better option somewhere. But I can tell you, in this building, the options are rough because this lighting is horrible. Out there, we have green walls, so it has a green color cast. You look horrible out there. Like, your best bet is to go somewhere with natural light, step outside, whatever. Another tip, and we saw a lot of this in your examples, so you know this is good, is to use leading lines. So to use fence lines, to use roads, to use paths, anything that leads your viewer in through your picture and shows them a little bit different angle. This one really shows the perspective because there is that person way back here in the picture of how big everything is. Gives you some idea of size and scale. And then the tip that we started with, whenever you do a landscape photo, really important to include a foreground. That is the part that amateur photographers always forget. They would go out and take this exact same picture, but from here up. They'd forget the foreground. They'd walk out to the beach, they'd go right up to the sand, and their shot would only be water and sky, or maybe a little sand, water, and sky. They wouldn't get any cool foreground in it. So keep that in mind when you take landscape photos. Another tip is to force your flash to go off on a sunny day when you're outside, when your flash would normally not want to go off, and that's called a flash fill. And you can see how it fills in the hard shadows. So at high noon, you get rough shadows on faces, and you don't want that. So by forcing your flash to go off, you can get these shots. So on a point and shoot, on the back somewhere, usually on a wheel, there's the lightning bolt that is the flash. That's where the options of your flash come on. And usually the three options are no flash, and when would you want to intentionally turn off your flash? You ever heard rules about that? Like no flash photography allowed. Museums, churches, aquariums, things like that. So the lightning bolt with the no sign is no flash. That tells your camera, I know it's dark, but you can't flash. Please don't. Lightning bolt with the A is auto. So your camera determines if there's enough light or if it needs to flash. The camera would not need to flash in either of these photos. There's plenty of light. So the third option is just the lightning bolt, and that makes the flash go off because you say so. On pure auto mode, you don't have those options. You have to be in other modes on your camera, typically, to force the flash to work like this. Okay, on pure auto mode, it's doing all the work for you. On your SLRs that have the pop-up flash, which I hardly ever use because I hate taking flash photography. And without my glasses, I can't even see. What? Huh?
I'll say that.
Right. Where are they? Does mine not have a button and it just launches?
It's the same one that I was trying to figure it out too.
I've used it, not often, to tell you the truth. These also have the hot shoe, this thing where you can slide an external flash on. The cool thing about them, so when this does pop up, it's about this high. Red eye is a real problem with point and shoot cameras because the flash is so close to the lens. The light going into your subject's eyes is going to illuminate the back of them and give them that red eye look. And it's so close that it happens almost every time. On this one, when it's popped up, it's a little bit further away. And on the external flashes that you slide in, it's much further away. You hardly ever get red eye. Plus, those flashes are bendable, so you can shoot the light right at them, or you can throw it up higher, or you can even shoot it off to the side. So those external flashes, that's how they slide on. Another thing that we saw in almost all of your awesome photos was that the subject typically is not dead center. So think back to that Holy Hill picture, that scenic one. It was way over here, and the rest of it was landscape, right? They were using that grid of thirds. So by moving the subject off center, you get a stronger composition than if they're dead center. Here is a tip that you need to use on any digital camera, and it's called locking the focus. And the trick here is that typically, on a point and shoot for sure, your focal point is the dead center point. When you look through it, there's usually some circles. On your SLR camera, quite often when you look through it, do you guys have a bunch of dots that maybe light up when you're focusing? You can set it to be only the center point should be where I want to focus, or all of them should be in focus, or just this point. But the default is that that center point, when you look through, is the one that's in focus. So to lock your focus, what you have to do is pull down your shutter halfway until it goes beep beep, or it lights up. And then you know that whatever you're aiming at, dead center, will be in focus. And then from there, you can physically move your camera off to the side and finish pushing down, and then your face would stay in focus, everything else would get blurry. So to get this shot, that's what I had to do. I started here and took the picture, but then I went back and started by locking in the face and then slightly moving my camera off center, and I finished pushing down the button. There is something called focal point lock that we're going to learn about later on these cameras, but this is a really helpful hint. You really need to do this. So the example that I showed here was, again, look at your screen because I can't probably see, but this is not really a crisp photo, right? The one with the cows? Soft. So this is my mom again announcing that she has a terrible camera, she hates it, and wants to get rid of it. With a point and shoot especially, when you turn it on, now I don't have the one with the battery, Rob does. When you turn it on, the lens goes whoop, and it comes out and it stops. Whatever that normal focal point is, that's what's going to be in focus by default. So if you just let it go out to whatever point that it does naturally, and you push and take the picture, That's where your focal point will be locked into. Whereas if she would have pushed that down halfway and let the focal point think, oh, there's a cow in front of me, I bet that's what I'm supposed to focus on, the lens would have got it right, and then you could finish taking the picture. So it goes from being a not in focus perfectly to a much more crisp photo. So locking your focus is critical on all of the cameras. Hold it down halfway, let it go beep beep, light in the locked part, and then if you need to recompose and then finish pushing down the shutter, that's what you do. Okay? And telling a story is really important, and the pictures that I want to show you here are not the best pictures, but they tell a story, and that's what was important to them. There's just a mood and a feeling with the one on the left that I really like. And the one on the right, I took in Yellowstone, and we were driving along, and all of a sudden bison kept coming, buffalo were coming, both sides of the road. And it was pretty cool. And everybody stopped and whatever. But I looked, this is a motorcycle, and this is the motorcyclist up in the tree. And these are the leading edge of the buffalo coming at him. So I took my point and shoot camera, I rolled down the window, and I went like this, click. I had no clue. I didn't do that halfway focus thing. I didn't take the time to think, what setting should I be on? I'm just like, I gotta see this, because if this bike is getting smashed and or this dude is, getting knocked out of the tree, I want to capture it.
It's terrible.
So I went like this. Yes.
You take all these pictures?
A lot of them, not all of them. My
You
mom,
said for all these presentations on there?
a lot of them in here are mine. Some of the bad ones are my mom's. Some are mine. If they're good, they're mine. I'll tell you if I did. No. But this one cracks me up because I wanted to capture that moment. So that's important. No. This went on for over a half an hour. I would say at least 300 buffalo went by. I have amazing pictures I'll share with you later. And he stayed in the tree the whole time, and the bike stayed up the whole time. Huh?
How is he supposed to carry this going?
No, he couldn't get down. It was just nonstop. They just kept coming. I have a picture of an idiot who got out with his camera and was walking towards them. I took a picture of that too to document him getting killed because I thought it was going to happen. Dumb. But I honestly have a picture outside of our car. I would say if my arm were twice as long, that's how close they were. And huge. So I'll show you those pictures. They show up later in class.
So, dude, did he get trapped?
He didn't, but I think at some point people started rolling down their windows and said, "Hey, get back in your car, you idiot." No, he just walked right out. That's called Darwinism.
Natural selection.
Right? All right, the last thing before we take our break. How do you get those sharp photos? In focus, perfectly tack sharp. It's fairly easy on a sunny day when your lens, when your shutter speed is really fast. Doesn't have to be a problem much. But anytime you're in a low light situation, it's hard to keep your camera still. You might get a good shot, but they might be a little fuzzy or a little blurry, and we saw a few examples of that in the bad photos. So use a tripod if you can, especially at lower shutter speeds or low light conditions. You can get a relatively decent tripod at like a Walmart for $25. So if you're interested, I would encourage you to look at that. Use a shutter release cable. So have you guys seen picture or examples in the old school photography where there's this wire and it came out to a little plunger and they would push it to take the picture? That's a shutter release that's wired. That works too. And by doing that, even if your camera is on a tripod and you go and push the button, do you think there's a little bit of hand wiggle that can be going on? Absolutely. So the shutter release, no hand is on it. So that's one way. They also have, let me bring them, wireless versions that you mount on this hot shoe right up here, and then you just use a remote control and you push it and it triggers the camera to work with no human touch of it. And then a built-in version that all of you have, also on the point and shoots, it's there somewhere, I would bet you money, is the timer option. So how many of you have used that, like taking a family picture? You get everybody set up, set the timer, and then you run and jump in the picture, right? Great, that works there. But it also works to minimize vibration of you pushing the shutter at a low light. So it's on the tripod, you put it on the 10-second delay, push the button, walk away. Any wiggling that you did to it should be long gone when the timer goes off. Okay? If you have lenses that have vibration reduction built into them, have the on-off switch, a lot of the time it's good to have that on. There are a few times when it's recommended not to have them on, and that Kelby book, as you're doing your readings through that, will guide you on that. So that's it. Let's take a break. We will come back, how about 10 o'clock?